Debuts everywhere, and Ole Miss does not want to end up like Texas and Alabama. It's not been a good day for the SEC. We bring in Boss Man from Biscuits and SEC a little bit later on, but this is a pregame show for the Ole Miss Rebels. It should be a lot of fun. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see how it goes.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Ole Miss is about 2 hours away from kicking off against the Georgia State Panthers. Hello, everybody. I'm Stephen Willis, a 10-year veteran member of the national media with Yahoo Sports and a former Ole Miss staff member as well. It is going to be a very interesting day because everybody watched the earlier Texas-Ohio State game and the struggles that Arch Manning had, which I predicted for about 8 months. And Alabama is currently in the middle of a dogfight to where they're not picking up first downs. They look absolutely terrible as well. Clemson is the favorite over LSU. There's a lot of games that could go sideways for the SEC, and that makes me wonder, is this Ole Miss team in prime position to make a run if they're as good as we thought? Thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day, and give us a like, subscribe, and comment on your way out. Check out a second listen on the network. Nearly every team, college or pro, is available. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, for $20 off your first purchase. Really interesting stuff. All right. The first depth chart of the season has come out, and there's a couple of things that I heard. First of all, TJ Banks is basically a lock to start this game, which is a really cool story. That's probably the story of fall camp, to bounce back from where he was. Him and Dante Core coming through to make a first game impact. TJ Banks is likely going to start at free safety. What I was told inside the Manning Center is he was a lock to, but I'm not willing to necessarily go there. Now, the other thing is punt return. On the depth chart, Harrison Wallace III is listed as the punt returner. I heard that in the mock game, Caden Lee returned punts for Ole Miss. So pay attention to who is going back to catch punts. Isaiah Hartrip is making a name for himself there as well. And Deuce Alexander is somebody else to watch for as a punt return. I was told that a lot of people were taking reps, but in the mock game, it was Caden Lee. And this one, Harrison Wallace, that's a name that you not necessarily have heard over the course of camp, but nobody's been looking necessarily at the wide receiver position. And as we just talked about it, Florida State just gained about 70 yards on a pass. They're about to blow Alabama out, if we're going to be completely honest about it. Caleb Odom, it looks like he is going to dress and play tonight. I don't know how much, but it looks like he is going to dress and play as well. So it should be a lot of fun. The takeaways from the depth chart from the first release of the day: PJ Wilkins is an or Delano Townsend. I'm not expecting Delano Townsend in this game, but if he plays, he plays. Deshaun Stribling is an or with Isaiah Hartrip. We talked about how Isaiah Hartrip had a really good camp for the Ole Miss Rebels, and obviously that bared a little bit of fruit as well. On the defensive side of the ball, TJ Banks is ahead of Wydett Williams. Both of those had kind of big plays. Sage Ryan is up as a first-team player, backed up by Dante Core. He moved out of cornerback. Him and Jalen Braxton kind of changed. And at the cornerback position, the two starters, I guess, that's really a starting 22 instead of a starting 11. But the people that are going to take the first snap, the names that I'm hearing is Ricky Fletcher and Antonio Kite. So we'll see exactly how that goes. The Manning Center kind of tightened up a little bit over the last week or so, as you imagine. There's not a lot of media to deal with, but it is something legit. I want to see certain things coming into this football game. One of the major things I think are keys in this game Austin Simmons needs to play within himself. He doesn't need to be the superstar that he could be and have hit and miss games at the quarterback positions. If he's just himself and takes what's available, Ole Miss is going to be absolutely fine, because this is an athlete game to where Ole Miss wants their athletes in space against Georgia State's athletes, and play a clean game. Avoid turnovers, avoid turnover on downs, because the first word in turnover on downs is turnover. If you have 4 combined to that, Georgia State has a real opportunity to do that. I think Ole Miss is going to win this game, and this is why. This isn't your typical rent-a-win against a G5 opponent. Ole Miss is a very talented team. But if you look at what Ole Miss has, they're going to play the starters a little bit longer in order to build continuity, because Kentucky, who barely squeaked by the Toledo Rockets today, they're hosting the Ole Miss Rebels next Saturday. The Ole Miss front seven, this is going to be a nice little challenge for a young group of front seven, but Georgia State wants to run the ball. Their offensive coordinator is Hugh Jackson, a former NFL person. And like I said, this is an athlete game. You want to get your athletes in space against Georgia State. Like I said, we're going to have Boss Man from Biscuits and SEC in just a little bit, but let's take a break real quick before we come back and talk about this game coming up between the Ole Miss Rebels and the Georgia State Panthers, and have Alex from Biscuits and SEC joining the program. So stick around. All right, I want to tell you about Game Time. College football is back, and I could not be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real. Getting tickets can feel like more of a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. That is why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. I pulled up the Game Time app, and in just a couple of taps, I saw amazing deals. I'm talking about getting in to the Ole Miss Georgia State game for like $21 as kickoff approaches. How about that? So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Also, we have an important request. Locked On wants to hear from you. We put together a survey to learn more about our listeners to make your favorite podcast even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't, and answer questions about our advertising. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes that survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's lockedonpodcast.com/survey. You can also find the link in the show notes below. Thanks again for helping us out. All right, this is a big game for Ole Miss. We talked and saw other things. We're going to have Boss Man on from Biscuits and SEC in just a second. We're going to take your comments in just a second, so put them in the queue. We will talk about that and check that out in just a second, what's going on. But the SEC today, the stars are kind of aligning. If Ole Miss is as good as we think they are, for Ole Miss to make a run. Alabama does not look good. They are currently getting blown out on the road at Florida State, who went 2-10 a year ago. This Florida State team is much improved. Tommy Castellanos was made in a lab for that Gus Malzahn offense. And right now, as we record this, is 24-7. I mean, it's a beatdown. And Alabama scored the first 7 points, so it's 24 unanswered. Texas ain't all that. If you look at it, Alabama's or Ohio State isn't all that either. So what's going on there? I don't think they're going to compete as well. LSU is an underdog against Clemson a little bit later on tonight. My point is, if Ole Miss does what we expect them to do, I think they're going to be pretty good this season. set up for a lot of success because the traditional powers in the SEC, they're not what you would expect. And a lot of that has to do with this. These are the teams that are 100-1 to win the national championship in college football that are replacing their quarterbacks. That is 15 out of 23. Ohio State, Miami, Texas, Auburn, Oregon, Louisville, Georgia, Oklahoma, Notre Dame, Indiana, Alabama, Missouri, Ole Miss, FSU. All of this changing a lot. Ty Simpson's not having the best day. You saw Julian Sayin at Ohio State didn't have the best day. It's one of those years to where the offense is a little bit higher up than they normally would be. Their defense is higher up on the offense than they normally would be, and it's because people are replacing these quarterbacks. That's just something to keep an eye on in this game. Austin Simmons is debuting. Listen, the people in the Manning Center talking about where Ole Miss sits right now, they are actually really excited about this football team. Like, borderline giddy. Now, there's some still stuff that they have to do. You can be excited about potential and then still like, well, it's not quite there. You know, it's not quite a situation where it can be realized potential. But this Ole Miss team, this Ole Miss staff, everybody in the Manning Center, they're excited about what this Ole Miss team could be. And that's through Austin Simmons, the running backs. They love the running backs. Kewan Lacey being the starter, as we said a couple of weeks ago. That's something to keep an eye on for what goes on. I said on the SEC squad show that I expected Kewan Lacey to break at least a 50-yard touchdown pass this week. All right, we're going to take one more break. When we come back, we're going to have Boss Man from Biscuits and SEC. So stick around for that. All right, let me tell you about Upside. Hey, Ole Miss fans, are you still paying full price for gas? Stop leaving money behind. Get real cash back every time you fill up with the free Upside app. Simply download the free Upside app on the App Store or Google Play right now and start earning cash at the pump today. Use my limited time promo code. It's really creative. It's football to get an extra 25 cents back on per gallon on your first fill up. You could make up to $300 just here from you buying gas. You already need it. At first, I thought this was too good to be true, but it is absolutely legit. Real people are getting paid to make their daily commutes, and you can too. Plus, you can cash out anytime to your bank account, PayPal, or gift card for Amazon or other brands. Don't let this offer drive on by. Download the free Upside app by using my limited time promo code football for a limited time 25-cent per gallon bonus. That's promo code football. Offers vary by user and location. Go to Upside for terms and conditions. All right, we are going to bring in Boss Man from Biscuits and SEC, and I am really excited about where we could be, and Boss Man's going to talk all about Arch Manning's struggle today. Alabama getting absolutely railed at the moment. Georgia didn't look great either. Listen, Boss Man, if Ole Miss is good as they think they are, this is kind of aligning for this football team to make a run this year.
It's looking like it. I mean, we've talked about it in the preseason, which is that there seems like for the first time in a long time, the SEC seems very wide open. And we're starting to see that play out here in the first day of the season, first week of the season here, as multiple teams struggle out of the gate here. So if you're a team who is yet to play like Ole Miss or like my Texas A&M Aggies tonight, and you got a cupcake coming up, you got to be excited about what you're looking at.
Yeah, this is not the day to start off with a hard game, because LSU is an underdog against Clemson. Virginia Tech, I'm telling you, that is a sneaky game against South Carolina. They can make some noise about that. Honestly, I am curious to see what happens. I talked about it. We do the show SEC After Dark together all the time, and you can attest to this. I talked about the reason that I thought Arch was going to struggle this year. the why he was getting too much hype too early. I think he's going to be a good quarterback. He is just not Shedeur Sanders essentially this year as far as hype goes. And against Ohio State, other than one real pass, this was a huge problem for Arch Manning. He did not look good at all.
He didn't. I mean, he's going up against a team that won the national championship last year. They have a ton of returning production. They've got a guy like Caleb Downs in the defensive backfield, who's probably the best defensive player in the country. So I think that everybody needs to pump the brakes for just a second here and remember that this is, I believe, Arch's like third start overall, maybe fourth in total when he had to fill in last year for Quinn Ewers for a couple games. So, yeah, he struggled out of the gate for sure. And myself and Hammer as well, you know, my other half from Biscuits and SEC, we've been talking about this for weeks. Hey, just pump the brakes a little bit. Let's watch him. Let's make sure that, you know, these wide receivers, who many of them are new, look good with Arch Manning. That offensive line, which is something that I've been harping on for a while, they looked like they were out of sorts today. And they looked like they had trouble protecting Arch Manning. Arch Manning was, you know, running around a little bit back there. And so it's going to take time. He's going to be okay. But out of the gate, what a tough game, and did not look good at all.
Yeah, and after the Ohio State, let's do the overreaction thing as we pregame waiting for Ole Miss and Georgia State. Let's do the overreaction thing. Mm-hmm. Texas they're legitimately on 8-4 watch this year, I think. If Arch Manning doesn't get it together to where he is at least a facsimile of what they expected of him, I can't give them the Oklahoma game because if you know the history of that game, you do not give them the Oklahoma game. They're not going to win at Georgia. And then you have a game at the Swamp against the Florida Gators. That is interesting. And I'm not going to give them Texas A&M. If that's the Arch Manning that everybody's going to get, I'm not going to give them Texas A&M this year.
And that's a rivalry game, right? It's like the Egg Bowl. When any rivalry game, you just throw it out the window. You never know what's going to happen. One team could be 4-8. The other team could be, you know, number 5 in the country, and you never know. I've seen that happen multiple times in the A&M rivalry over the years, where A&M had no business walking into Austin and beating Texas, and they do it. And Texas A&M should be a good team this year. You know, Texas is obviously talented. I don't give them that game either. And I was about to say it. You beat me to it. A good friend of mine said Texas was on 8-4 watch early in the season, and that was you. And I had them going 9-3, and so I think that is right there on the table as well. So they got to get better in a hurry. Their schedule isn't, you know, the worst in the SEC by any means, but it's not easy either. And those games that you pointed out are all the ones that you got to circle now and be like, okay, we'll see. And by the way, if we're talking about, you know, putting quarterbacks head to head, a lot of people having Arch Manning as a Heisman type of candidate. Well, I think you got to put DJ Lagway ahead of him right now. Mm-hmm. We'll see how it looks, you know, the first couple of weeks, but we have a lot more sample size from DJ Lagway, and Arch Manning's got to play him in the Swamp. So you got to be a little worried about that one now.
All right, so let's go into the comments section. As you can see, I'm kind of rotating through the people that have commented. If you have said something or you want to say something, hop into the comments. We're going to be doing this for about 5 or 10 more minutes in this pregame show. So James York had this comment, said, as long as Ole Miss builds on every game and doesn't beat themselves, they should at a minimum make the playoff. What say you?
Very possible. Again, as we talked about a couple minutes ago, the SEC feels wide open this year. And Lane Kiffin, I said this on our Biscuits and SEC live show the other night, Lane Kiffin is good for 9 wins a year at a minimum. He can get to 10 wins. Just look at his history. Look what he's done at Ole Miss. So even if folks, you know, in the national media have kind of been overlooking Ole Miss to some degree because they might think that the roster is a little less talented this year than it was last year, don't discount that. Don't discount the fact that Lane Kiffin wins 9+ games a year, which gives them a great chance to be in the SEC title hunt by the end of the year and also in the playoff conversation as well.
Yeah, it should be interesting. What has surprised you most today so far?
Well, I mean, the Arch Manning thing, but truthfully, what's going on right now in Tallahassee? I mean, I haven't looked at the score since we got on here, but it was 17-7 when I walked upstairs to get on here. So
it's 24-10.
24-10. That is crazy. Look, I'm going to say something that may be crazy here, but I don't think it is. If that result holds and Florida State beats Alabama right now, you know, in this game in Tallahassee, I think the Alabama dynasty is dead. I think that from 2009 to 2025, put it on the gravestone, and I think it's over, and which is unfortunate for Bama fans, but maybe great for the rest of us around the SEC.
So this is like it was 1988, so it would have been 27 years since a brick got thrown through the window of Bill Curry because he lost a game on Alabama's homecoming to Ole Miss as the coach of Alabama on the dedication of the Bear Bryant Football Museum. This is a brick game. This is legitimately a brick game, in my opinion.
Yeah, in week one, we want to talk about overreactions, right? Everybody has the big overreaction to whatever however Arch plays or whatever the storyline is. Well, there will be crazy overreactions in Alabama if they lose this game. This was a Florida State team that was 2-10 last year. Folks expected them to be a little bit better. It's pretty hard to, double up a 2-10 season, go back to back like that with all the resources that Florida State has. So you expect them to be better. However, all the trash that Thomas Castellanos has been talking, all of the, the hype around Alabama about potentially being a playoff team, getting back to, 10-2, getting back to Alabama winning ways, the fan base in Tuscaloosa and in across the state of Alabama will be spun up. So brick game for sure.
Yeah, it would be the Alabama dynasty completely dead. This is like time to write the obituary. I think it was the Luke Robinson from Locked On Bama just put out a tweet. Is like, I'm going to drive into the Atlantic. Is one of those things. Things are not going well, especially when you consider how good Auburn looked against Baylor the night before.
Yeah, and no doubt. I mean, you got to be looking at that right now too. And all of us on SEC After Dark, we were split on that game, right? We had a lot of us were on Baylor, a lot of us were on Auburn, and we really didn't know how the game was going to go. So to watch Auburn walk out of Waco with a very convincing win and Jackson Arnold looking good with his legs, you got to be excited if you're an Auburn fan and looking across at Tuscaloosa and being like, my goodness. And one more thing I'll say too, speaking of overreactions and something I'm most surprised about, has anybody done a wellness check here on Paul Feinbaum after that Arch Manning performance? Because he has been glazing that guy all offseason and talking about how he's, the best thing since sliced bread. And to watch that performance out of the gate, I don't think I've heard anything from Paul Feinbaum recently.
Yeah, he went in hard on Arch. He decided to take that route. And listen, just the law of averages, and I'm not calling Arch a bust or anything like that. Like I said, I think he's going to be a good quarterback. He has tools. But when you have a Peyton and an Eli, just the law of averages eventually would catch up to that family to where you would just have a good quarterback.
Exactly. Yeah. So we'll see. And I saw somebody tweet this. It hadn't occurred to me, but I thought it was pretty great. So I feel like I'm having deja vu. I feel like I've seen this before. And they had the ESPN cover and the Sports Illustrated cover of Chris Sims back in the day, who was about the same thing, right? You got Phil Sims. It's the son. He's from a football family, a football royalty family. And his career at Texas wasn't that great. So we'll see. Maybe Arch Manning ends up being much better than Chris Sims. But, and for their sake, I hope he's not Chris Sims. But I agree with you. I think he's going to be good. Just a tough one out of the gate.
Yeah, and Bino Cook, who for younger kids, that was the Lee Corso before Lee Corso at ESPN. Basically, he said Ron Paulus was going to win 2 Heisman trophies, and that didn't happen either. He was a fair quarterback, but he just wasn't that guy. So that happens from time to time. I'm curious to see, like people say, he's going to have good games against San Jose State and these 3 cupcakes they have coming up. It's like that's never been the question for Arch. He has taken bad teams and put them to the sword. The problem he has is when he faces a good team. That is the hill he has to climb.
Well, and we saw last year against Mississippi State, I don't have the stats from that game in front of me, but it was kind of a so-so performance. And that was Mississippi State. Mississippi State, as all of the Ole Miss fans know, was not good last year in the slightest. So that concerned me a little bit from last year. And then, which made me just give me pause a little bit. Like, why are we just going all in on Arch just yet? We haven't seen it. He's got Ohio State out of the gate. Let's just watch for a second here and make sure that he's got the stuff. I think that, again, I think he's going to be fine. It's a tough one out of the gate. But we just want to, you got to see when the bullets start flying. You never know until the bullets start flying in week 1. And, we'll see where it goes from here.
Yeah, I put up a graphic a little bit earlier in the show, and it's one of my go-to graphics that I've been going back to where 15 out of the 23 teams that are 100-1 or better to win the national title, they're changing a quarterback this year. So everybody that knows what they're going to do, they don't know what they're going to do. It's, if you want to look at the way you looked at college football as soon as 2019 ago, you would be foolish if you move that forward to this year, in my opinion.
Well, and that stat just goes to show you. I mean, I looked at when the preseason rankings came out and Texas was ranked number 1. I was a little surprised. I thought Texas could be like a top 5 ranked team, top 8, kind of thing. But to have them at number 1 right out of the gate, and it also be the first time that Texas in the poll era, I believe, has been ranked number 1 preseason. That surprised me because I'm looking back in the past at Texas teams, and it's like they've had better teams coming back, in my opinion, in the last 30 years, right, or 40 years in the poll era. And to have this team with all that they lost, with a new starting quarterback coming in, 4 offensive linemen you got to replace, multiple defensive linemen you have to replace who were studs. It just surprised me a little bit, but it's because of all that, all the quarterbacks that are getting replaced across some of these other, potential national title contenders as to why Texas ended up being number 1. And because the media loves them. Let's just be honest here.
Yes. Yeah. It's one of those things to where if they just show up, they're going to get the benefit of the doubt. Got a question here from Stephen Warden. He says, do you think Hartrip will play? That's Isaiah Hartrip, the transfer out of Southeast Missouri. Yeah, I do think he's going to play. He's listed on the depth chart as an or with Deshaun Stribling, and he's listed as the lead kickoff returner. He does a lot in the return game. I think he has a chance to be the Dayton Wade of this year's Ole Miss team, just somebody that comes out of absolute nowhere as well. Hey, what have you got going on over at Biscuits and SEC? What are you looking forward to in the A&M game? What do you got going on?
Yeah, we got a lot going on at Biscuits and SEC. We're trying to churn out a bunch. We've been doing our 16 and 16 series, which takes a 30,000 foot view of each program in the SEC and then dives in, looks at what happened last year, and then also kind of takes a look at what is going to happen this year. We're almost done. I know the preseason's over. We're almost done churning those out. They take some time just because we take a really, advanced look into all these programs. So we got that going on. Biscuits and SEC Live is every Wednesday at 7 Eastern, 6 Central on the After Dark Network. Thanks to Stephen Willis, who has put that together. We really enjoy being part of that. And then obviously we're over on SEC After Dark and all across our social media channels at Biscuits and SEC if you guys want to check that out. We do a newsletter as well called the Morning Biscuits Newsletter, which is a ton of fun. We write that on Mondays and Fridays. And it's everything that's going on around the SEC, just kind of a primer to get you ready and keep you informed about what's going on around the SEC. So that's really what's going on with Biscuits and SEC. As far as the A&M game tonight, I'm really interested to see what this running game looks like. We've got Reuben Owens coming back. You got Le'Veon Moss coming back as well from injury. Looks like it's going to be mostly a two-headed monster with a little bit of Amari Daniels and then E.J. Smith, Emmitt Smith's son. So 4 running backs really in a stable for A&M. But with those 2 guys who are supposed to be the main guys, I want to see what they look like coming back from injury. And then I also want to see what this Texas A&M secondary looks like, because that's the real question mark for A&M. And, hey, UTSA is no slouch. This is not – I don't expect A&M to just roll them by 40 points. UTSA, Jeff Traylor, the coach down there, has done a very good job. And so I expect this one to be probably something like A&M pulls away late and wins by 20, 24, something like that. But that's what I want to see. I don't want to see A&M win by 10. I don't want to see him slog through it, and I want to see what this running game looks like because I think that will be a lot of foreshadowing looking forward as to what the A&M season is going to be, because they need that running game to be really stout.
All right, Boss Man from Biscuits and SEC. Check all of that stuff out, man. Thank you very much for stopping by, and we'll talk to you later, bub.
You bet. Sounds good. Good luck to the Reps tonight.
All right, thank you. All right, got a question here from James York before I get out here. What are your thoughts on the big uglies up front? I think people freaked out because of lack of information when it came to the offensive line going through there. It looks like Delano Townsend is not hurt as badly as we thought. And there's 4 out of the 5 players that everybody assumed was going to be starting. They made it to the first game. And the number 6 offensive lineman is probably going to be playing the left guard position. I think they will be fine, personally. That's just my opinion to see what happens there. That was James York asking that question. Thank you again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your go-to source for Ole Miss sports. We pride ourselves on offering the most comprehensive perspectives, which is why we're the front door of Ole Miss. If you don't believe me, search Ole Miss podcast. We're like 80% of that page. Anybody that is looking to go to Ole Miss, they're going to see our podcast. So don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment on the video. It helps the show and it's totally free. Your support means the world to us. And in another big moment for Locked On college football fans, Locked On and Fire TV are presenting College Football Kickoff, your ultimate college football weekly preview. Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12 leads the conversation along 2-time AP Coach of the Year, Gary Patterson, former college star Jesse Holley, and Locked On's local experts. A college football preview only Locked On can do. Catch College Football Kickoff every Thursday throughout the season, only on Fire TV. Hotty Toddy, everybody. And remember, analytics is just the old English word that means bad football. We are in the closing minutes before we go to the next level and see exactly what we can do. Anyway, take care, everybody. We'll talk to you after the game.